Hello, everyone. My name is Brian.
And my name is Michael.
And today we have gathered to talk about a cinematic event, the likes of which does not come along very often. We've been waiting a long time because we did go into the Spider-Verse. We got up in there, but we have been longing to go across. And it's been a while because they gave us some dates for when we'd be able to go from like left to right in this Spider-Verse, and then they were pushing it back. We were like, take your time. We know it'll be worth it. We have faith. And finally, we are here to discuss Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Michael, I know we talk about these movies a lot. I say these movies, I mean like anything that has the Lord and Miller stamp on it, basically. There's a lot of people, very talented people involved with this film.
Yeah, not to diminish anyone else that worked on any other film that Lord and Miller worked on.
100%. We're especially in the Lord and Miller lens right now, because Clone High has just come back. We're high on all of this stuff. It's all coming. It's too good to be true how much is all coming at the same time. But we did, we rewatched the original Spider-Verse last night, and whew, I don't know if anyone's pointed this out, but that's a really great movie.
You guys should stop sleeping on it.
Yeah. Man, I mean, we were talking about this, like, we watched that teaser trailer that they put out like a year before the movie came out, and like we knew who was involved in the making of it, so we were like, oh man, just wait. This thing, people may not be paying attention to it now, but pretty soon they will. But wow, I knew it would be great, and it was great, but what I think I didn't expect was just how much people were going to embrace that film. That movie has changed the industry. It is, its impact.
We were talking
insane.
about this earlier.
Yes.
How if you listed out all of the major American animated film releases,
right,
you would be able to pinpoint exactly where Into the Spider-Verse released.
Exactly. Because everyone talks about, you have, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, or The Bad Guys, or, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem, these movies where it's maybe it seems like it's going for, a style that's of a similar world to this, but I would go so far as to say, even animated films that just kind of, challenge the norm in general are taking cues from Into the Spider-Verse. You get it with Luca, you get it with Turning Red, you're getting it with Wish. The movie, it changed the game, that movie. Obviously, it's not just about the technology, it's about the beating heart behind it, and the story that was told, and the impact that was had. But, just the sheer, filmmaking that was on display was enough to just, multiple studios just, taking cues from it. From this Oscar-winning film.
And I do want to say, now that I have a microphone in front of me and everyone's listening.
Yes.
To each and every one of you that bought a ticket for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse back in 2018 or early 2019.
Right.
Or any potential re-releases that may have happened that I wasn't aware of.
Live in concert or something.
For any reason, if you gave that movie your money, I want to thank you for pushing this forward. If that movie flopped, then
the world would be less good.
The world would be less good. All the studios would go, "Oh, you can't do that with animation. People don't like that. It's not what it's made for." So thank you. You can wear the mask.
Yes.
You are the special.
I did wear the mask to go into the movie theater.
I did as well. That's what they would have wanted.
Jeez. It's really it's so crazy, because, it won the Oscar, and this was, it was not a given that this movie was going to win the Oscar. It was, it was up against competition from Pixar and Disney, who, they, kind of famously, or infamously, however you want to look at it, they sort of own that category of Best Animated Feature. And, for this movie to, come in here, it's a Spider-Man movie. Some Spider-Man animated film to just come in here and win that Oscar. It was a pretty big deal. And,
Yeah, I mean, I was
world
talking
knows.
to you about this, but when the Oscars were airing,
Yeah.
I was at school and I couldn't like watch them live, but I was like, updating Twitter, the Oscar page, waiting for all the updates and the winners. And then when Spider-Verse won, I was like, oh my god, you guys, Spider-Verse won! It did it! It did it! It won somehow. And everyone was like, well, yeah, everyone likes that movie.
It does not...
It's insane to me that was... It had all the cards against it.
It was the first non-Disney or Pixar movie to win Best Animated Feature since Rango in 2011. Like, that's... the film came out in 2011. I guess the ceremony was held in 2012. You get my point. It was only the sixth non-Disney Pixar film to win the award. Which is not that much. Like, it doesn't happen a lot. Usually the times when it didn't happen, it was because, like, Disney didn't have anything to compete with it.
Yeah.
So... And it was they beat another superhero movie. They beat Incredibles too. I mean, it was quite something. It was a wonder to behold.
They heard about all those kids that people were kicking out of the way, and they were like, "We should not reward these people."
Yeah, for Incredibles too. Yeah. I waited 14 years for this or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I waited
Move
5
out of the
years.
way. Yeah, we waited 5
We waited
years.
4.5 grueling long years.
I'm gonna round it up to 5. Because that sounds nice. We waited 5 grueling, miserable, awful, terrible, no good, very bad years.
Except for 2019, it had Lego Movie Part 2. That was pretty good.
That was good. And that was... I distinctly remember being, like, going into the movie theater and, like, Spider-Verse is still playing. And I'm like, what a wonderful time it is for there to be both... To have this unity of spiders and Legos that perhaps we'll never see again. Thankfully, we did see it again.
What? Jake Johnson?
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were in this call.
Last warning, everyone, that we're going to get into spoilery detail. So if you have not ventured across the Spider-Verse yet, you better do so, because all bets are off. It's time to start talking about the movie, which, by the way,
tonight,
going into
on a very special podcast.
On a very special episode of the podcast. Because it is a very special episode. Because we don't do this all the time. We do it when we really want to do it.
Yeah, every episode is special.
That's right.
Much like our good friends Lord and Miller's show.
Exactly. And they're our friends because we said so.
Because they love hanging out with us.
Right. Not because we admire their work, but because we're personal friends with them. So going into the theater, like, I mean, what was so cool about this was, like, yeah, it's like, Thursday night, like, I'm going in, well, I mean, not even like Thursday night, it was like Thursday, like, it was like basically like the movie was starting at like 6, like it was like right up at like, kind of a weird time. It's like, oh, are people like having dinner right now? Is anyone going to be at the showing? Oh, people were at the showing, like people showed up for this movie. There was a palpable sense of excitement in the air. I don't know. What was your theatrical experience like, Michael?
It was very good.
Yes.
Like, it wasn't as crowded as I would have liked, TBH. I don't know if people like crowds in movie theaters or if they dislike them. I personally like them because I like the energy that lots of people watching a movie bring.
Oh, yeah.
However, the second time I saw this movie, it was pretty crowded.
What do you mean the second time you saw this movie?
Well, so I went to the theater to see it at 2 p.m., and then it ended, and then I was like, cool, and then I saw it again at the next
Michael!
Don't worry, both in IMAX, they're getting my money, I'm a little shill.
Wait, Michael, were you planning to see it twice today? Because I know you were like,
no,
go again tomorrow.
I wasn't planning on it. However, this morning happened, and I was like, I kind of don't want to wait that long. And one of my friends has already established, hey, if you want to go to the 2 p.m. showing, I'm free. You can go to the 2 p.m. showing. And so I thought,
oh, wow.
YOLO. And that was my thought. It was the same screen for both of them. I could have just sat down and done nothing for 5 hours.
by the way, if you're listening to this in real time, like as in like when the movie has just come out, apparently it'll only have the IMAX screens for a week. So if you want to see this movie in IMAX,
that partially influenced my decision. If you want to see Transformers: Rise of the Beasts in IMAX instead next week, though, be my guest.
Right. So I take it from, I don't think there's going to necessarily be a lot of suspense here, because I take it from the fact that yes, go ahead.
I mean, also, I just want to, the fact that Regal was doing special tickets also influenced my decision. I can't lie.
Oh.
I was like, I don't want them. Ticket? Well, I was like, I don't want them to be out. No, they only had one.
They only had one?
Next weekend is the Gwen one.
Oh, we got both. They were just both there. So I have both of them.
That's very... You have both? You only saw it once?
I mean...
Did you just ask?
People don't usually take them. At my theater, whenever they have that stuff, they're just like, yeah, take however many you want. Because, like, a lot of people don't take it.
That is insane. At my theater, there's, like, they're guarded. People, like, there's an employee that's like, did you already get one? And I'm like, no. They're like, okay, here you go. Can I see your ticket? And I'm like, are you going to the IMAX one? Can I see your ticket? I'm like, yes, you can see my ticket. Here's the IMAX. And they're like, okay, here you go.
Listen, I took the Gwen one first, because I was like, I knew you got the Miles one, so I was like, at the very least, between the two of us, we'll have both of them. But then I took the other one, and they didn't stop me. And then I ran, and they didn't no, I didn't run. But...
And then Miguel said, everyone, catch Brian! And then everyone in the theater who happened to be named Brian, which was really weird that everyone was named Brian, just pointed at each other. Yeah,
they just started pointing. There was a lot of confusion about which Brian they meant. But what I was saying was, I feel like there's not a lot of suspense here, because I'm guessing the fact that you saw the movie, you stayed in the theater, and went to watch it again immediately after. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that maybe you liked it?
A little.
A little? Just a bit?
A little bit.
Just a bit.
I mean, I've seen movies I don't like multiple times.
Right.
I can't name one off the top of my head, but that probably happened.
No, I mean, as have I, because then, like, you're going with friends or something.
I mean, we had the whole build-up, like, shrug.
Okay, so this movie, I feel like, and let me be very clear when I say this. I love movies. I love film. However, I feel like calling this a film is to do it a disservice. I think I had an experience in that IMAX theater. One that I didn't know was possible.
Yes.
I'm sitting in that theater, and I mean, I truly just mean, from the prologue alone, which, like, I'm watching the whole thing being like, oh my god. Like, I am so invested in this right now. And the second they drop the title card, I'm gonna, like, start levitating. Because this is just an incredible experience right at the gate. I mean, just falling in love with the movie right from the get-go.
I fell in love with this movie.
Yeah.
Before the logos even began.
Well, yeah.
They had an animation for the Lord and Miller cough. That is when I left. That is when my body ascended. And it never landed.
Oh, I did not notice an animation.
You didn't notice? In the bottom corner, like, a little, like, animation that said, cough, like, appeared.
I heard it. I guess I just didn't... Listen, there's so much going on with the logos at all times. And there's a lot of visual information, not just, like, in terms of, like, things that are happening, like on screen, they're, like, images, but also just, like, text that's, like, popping in and out of this movie, which I loved. I don't know. I guess I was just so focused on listening for the cough that I missed them putting the text on screen. That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
I lost my mind. The person I went with was just like, what are you doing right now?
Just to give context for anyone who doesn't know, the cough that we're referring to is something that Lord and Miller have been including at the very start of their movies for a bit now. It's like right as the opening logos are happening. They tried to they did it in 22 Jump Street, and the studio's actually like, yeah, you can't put in the Blu-ray version because they were afraid that people at home would think there was like an intruder in their house. But they've snuck it into every movie ever since. It was in the beginning of Into the Spider-Verse, and it is also at the beginning of Across the Spider-Verse. They have so many different versions of the logo. Well, they also had the Lord and Miller like logo.
I know. I don't think they had that in the first one.
I don't think they did either.
So the cough appearing before the Sony Pictures Animation logo, that is when I knew that I would be leaving satisfied.
Yeah. So Gwen, I mean, right off the bat, she lets us know this movie is going to be different, like really different. And different it is. And like, I really appreciated that we started from her perspective, because I do feel like that gave us a very fresh lens to experience. I was about to say the world of Spider-Verse, but obviously it's more than one world. But like, just
the Gwen world.
The Gwen world. Like, I mean, just the color design was jaw-dropping. Like, yeah, I mean, like, this movie...
every frame of painting, literally.
I was sitting near the front of the IMAX theater, and I thought that, like, I thought my head was going to explode. But I would have been fine with that. I was just... It's just such a beautiful... I think just the opening of this movie is just exceptional. Like, I feel like it was a very bold choice to start this way. Because, I mean, you look back at the first movie, and the first movie has a brilliant opening, of course. But, like, the first movie, I feel like, it has an obligation to be like, all right, listen, people are coming in off the street, they don't know what this is, they know it has Spider-Man on it, but they don't know what's going on. Here, we'll give you, like, a Peter Parker Spider-Man, the version you're familiar with, like the one that, like, you know, it's kind of like Sam Raimi, it's kind of like the one from the animated series, it's kind of like the one that's on the popsicle, that's the one you know. There it is, right up front, here it is. Which, like, got it. This movie is like, we're gonna take our time just, like, kind of showing you what's going on with Gwen. Like, I feel like it takes, like, 10 minutes, and I loved it.
I mean, I will say, speaking of runtime, that movie was not 2.5 hours. That was, like, 5 minutes. Anyway.
It was not 2.5 hours, yet also at the same time, it felt like I, like, lived it. You know, like, it felt bigger than 2.5 hours. Which, by the way, it's the longest Western animated wide release film, I believe.
Yes, that sounds correct.
Probably by, like, a fair margin. Like, at least, like, 10 minutes, I would think. Right? Like, I don't know. I think it's... Because, like, Incredibles 2, I think, was the longest Pixar movie. And that movie was only, like, 118 minutes. So, I mean, they were cooking with this. They were cooking with it, let me tell you. This whole sequence, I think the reason why I loved it so much is because we know sort of what's going on with Gwen from the first movie, but we get a lot of that information, like, fed to us very quickly, and it's sort of just, like, tangential. Like, you know, we're aware, like, oh, this thing happened with her Peter, and, like, she's upset about it, and, like, it kind of reflects later when, you know, the Peter B. Parker is, like, trying to talk to MJ about the bread or whatever. But, like, you don't, like, it's more just, like, you know about it, but we've only, like, scratched the surface. Here, like, you really felt like you were getting the Gwen... Like, I was thinking back to... Because I remember at one point they announced, like, oh, we're going to do a Spider-Gwen movie. I feel like we kind of, like... They kind of, like, melded that into this film, I would think. Because it really...
It did feel like that, yeah. Like, she definitely felt very pro-taggy in a way that she did not in Into the Spider-Verse.
We were in another universe. Like, it was Miles and Gwen's movie. Like, the movie belonged to both of them. And I think... Yeah, so, I mean, the perfect way to start of just, like, yeah, you feel, like, a sense of a displacement. You feel like you're in another universe because you're just, yeah, centering her. And it was, like, I think it just, the effect it accomplished for me was just also this thing of, like, you know, you go in, you buy the ticket, you know, you've seen the trailers, you think you kind of know what to expect. But, like, I feel like the movie just, like, so often floored me because I was like, this is not what I thought I was gonna see, you know what I mean? Like, it just, I feel like the whole I was like, oh, I maybe have, like, some sort of an idea about how things are gonna go down, but, like, this movie is really, you have all the verse jumping and, like, different versions of Spider-Man or whatever, and it's like, oh, is it gonna collapse in on itself? Is it all gonna be too much? No, the movie's, it has that, but it's not about that. This movie is about the characters, and it spends a lot of time just kind of letting you like watch their interior lives. And I was kind of, I mean, I thought it was kind of audacious how much it focused on it. Like, it really, you know, it gives you like some of these action scenes like here and there, but like it very much was just like, you care about these characters, and we know that you do. So we're just going to, like, you know, talk about their future. We're going to see their emotional turmoil. We're going to, like, get their home life. It's a movie that's genuinely about family. Like, it really is. And, I mean, I mean, let's get into it. Gwen and her dad, like, that whole thing was just... that was rough. I want to get your thoughts on this, Michael. On Gwen and her and like that whole storyline, because like for me, I feel like it was definitely bringing up a lot of feelings.
Oh, absolutely. In a movie with a lot of highlights, in a movie that ran my highlighters dry because the whole movie was just a giant highlight.
Right.
Gwen and her dad was the highlightiest bit of the highlight, I think.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one that you highlight twice with two different colored pens.
Yes.
I legitimately had no idea where it was going. Because I was like, obviously Miles and his parents are going to, like, probably have a better relationship. Either this is going to parallel that, or it's going to be awful and then parallel it in that way.
Right, because he's the protagonist, and we care about him, and we care about, you know, his family. We know his family. We know they're good people.
So, I legitimately thought that he was going to, like, start shooting her.
Yeah,
like, shooting at her. Like,
I know. I also was really worried that was about to happen. The fact that we could watch that scene and feel like that was a possibility that was going to happen is insane. And that's what they get from being like, hey, here's the secondary character that we can kind of do whatever we want with. We can just be like, listen, her whole life has fallen apart. And you just have to kind of accept it. But by making her, like, central from the very beginning, it just kind of, like, takes on, like, another level of pathos where it's like, I don't know, because I feel like a lot of times you'll have, like, a supporting character where it's like, oh, they have a really tragic backstory, and you're just like, oh, well, I mean, that sucks for them, and I feel bad. But, like, to just, like, see it like this, just, like, given, like, this much attention, just, like, put right up front, I think this was really the thing where they were like, if we figure this out, this is how this becomes, like, a not just, like, a part 1 and part 2 movie. This is how, like, we can, like, have...
It's funny that you say that, because I was thinking the exact same thing.
Right? Like, because they definitely, I feel like, were like, let's build out what's going on with Gwen and the story that we could tell there. That's, like, kind of the B story, but, like, is presented as the A story in the beginning. And, like, let that be what sort of guides us through the movie. Because, like, that's the biggest tip of the hat that you get for the movie. Even, I mean, not to jump way to the end, but, like, for the movie to even be ending, like, you know, because Gwen starts talking about, like, you know, I wanted to be in a band, and now I made my own band. Like, you're like, oh. As soon as I heard her say those words, I was like, it's about to be over.
I mean, yeah, like, I feel like, as you said, this movie could have very easily felt like one long movie that they cut into half, just because they were like, okay, this is halfway through the runtime, split it there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything with Gwen at the end, I think, is what makes this a satisfying movie. Yeah. And not just a satisfying piece of a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And it is, I mean, it is a movie that has to be continued at the end, which, like, I don't think I've ever seen a movie in the theater that actually ends with "to be continued" text on the screen. But wow, is that a rush? Like, I mean, I know, like, we kind of had a feeling that's what was going to happen because they'd originally announced this as, like, a part 1 and part 2, but we didn't know, like, maybe they would try to be like, all right, let's give this, like, more of an ending so it can sort of be a standalone film, but, like, have, like, some elements that then we'll like, we didn't know to what extent it would be a cliffhanger. I was saying, like, oh, it'd be crazy if, like, the movie ends with, like, Miles in another universe that's on his own. And, like, I mean, we got that, but, like, I think we got a lot more than just that. Like, the end, I mean, it truly was, like, I want to know, because you have 2 crowd reactions. Because my theater, when To Be Continued came up, everyone went, oh! like there was, like, a, like, shock, and just, like, everyone was, like, they couldn't believe what was happening. Like, you could audibly hear it.
Yeah, people were frustrated.
Yeah.
Like, playfully frustrated.
Yeah. We're like, oh!
Like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to wait.
Yeah. Yeah. I can only imagine this is what it felt like seeing... Do you know what movie I'm going to say, Michael? Take a guess. You got one guess.
Empire.
No! I'm actually really glad you said that, because I think a lot of people are going to be like, it's The Empire Strikes Back to Spider-Verse. I mean, sure. It's the middle chapter, it's the dark one, whatever. Like, you know, the story gets really serious and dark. Sure. I'm going to say Back to the Future Part 2. And here's why.
Okay, I'm glad that you said that. Because, like, I figured you weren't going to say Empire. I figured that's why you asked. You're like, oh, you're going to say Empire. I'm going to script this whole thing out. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that
exactly.
it was... Because, I mean, I also
Exactly.
did think about Back to the Future, because it also has to be continued.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, Back to the Future Part 2, you know, it has its to be concluded right there at the end.
Concluded.
And, like, yes. And they added a to be continued to the end of the first movie in, like, the home video release, because they tried to be like, aha, we planned it the whole time. When the ending of the first one was more just like a tee-hee, haha. Not really a cliffhanger, just like, haha.
Just like, look at them, they're going on fun adventures.
Yeah, and then they were like, oh, we need to actually figure this out. But the ways in which they're similar, it's not just the fact that we have the, like, crazy to be continued ending that's, like, very adventure serial or comic book style, however you want to put it. Both work. But it's also just this thing of, like, we go to different universes, and our main protagonist ends in, like, an alternate universe or timeline or whatever you want to call it that is not their own, and they're stuck there, and they just have to, like, navigate all of this stuff throughout the film. A lot of just, like, you know, these, like, crazy things where you, like, just feel, like, very displaced, and, like, they also, like, I feel like you could have the sense of, like, while there are themes that, and characters, of course, that run through all 3 of the films, there's definitely a sense of, like, hey, they're starting to set stuff up in the second one that's going to pay off in the third one fully, like, you know, like Marty McFly being, like, a chicken, or, you know, different things like that, or, like, oh, what happens to him in the future, and, like, all the stuff of, like, is he going to, like, ruin his life, or whatever, like, you know, going on that race, different things like that. And you get a little bit of that in this movie, too, of just, we're, you know, going to kind of set the table, and we got a lot of stuff that we're going to pay off, and you're not going to fully see, like, we'll tell you, we'll set up the spot, but, like, you're not getting all of that yet. We'll set up the big cliffhanger of, like, Miles and himself, and, like, you know, seeing the other Uncle Aaron, which I'm so glad we did get to see another Uncle Aaron. We're hoping that would happen. Oh, man. I don't even know where to be, like, let's talk about the spot. Can we talk about the spot?
I'd love to talk about the spot.
Okay. This character is, like, crazy. Because it just, I mean, obviously just so inventive in terms of the visual approach to the character, and, like, just, like, the sheer creativity of the action sequences that are happening, but the way in which it develops from a joke to a very genuine threat is so kind of unnerving in this film, because literally, like, I don't even just mean in the sense that, like, oh, like, he's kind of like a funny character at first in the movie, like, no. The fact that he is the bagel guy, Michael? He's the bagel guy?
That was the most insane reveal, like, ever.
I literally went, oh! I was like, I couldn't believe that they did that. I would have never guessed. What an inspired choice to make it the guy. If you don't know, I mean, you must know if you're listening to this. The guy who got hit with the bagel in Into the Spider-Verse. He's back with a vengeance.
You know, the one where bagel popped up right above his head.
Bagel, yes, as he was hitting the head with a bagel. Oh, man. He is the villain. That's amazing. Like, how I really want to know if that ever was the consideration, or if they were just like, you know what would be funny?
Yeah, people like this guy.
People like this guy.
He's a guy. He's a
way,
minor character that people like know.
Either way, it's wonderful. Like, I can't emphasize enough what a wonderful choice that is. But like, even that aside, because obviously that makes me really biased towards loving the character, but just the whole approach to him, I feel like we've gotten so many superhero villains in this, and I mean, of course you get like some like self-aware writing, as Lord and Miller will often do, but they'll always do it in a really like smart and funny way that doesn't feel like played out or just self-referential for the sake of being self-referential. But like the whole thing of him being like, I don't want to just be a villain of the week, that was great.
Yeah, because
that
I mean,
was
like,
really the vibe. Yeah,
you would think that, like, obviously we are attached to the heroes, but then it's like these villains, like, they put all their effort and they're just like, yeah, I'm just a gag.
right.
Like the armadillo guy.
Yeah,
I'm sure he put a lot of effort into trying to do that. Miles just kicked him, and he was annoyed. He was running late.
Yep. And because this is how the spot is introduced. It's just kind of this vibe of, hey, here's just, like, we're giving you this character, so you have a sense of, oh, this is what Miles has been up to. He's doing the superhero thing now. Here's one of the kinds of foes he might fight. Anyway, moving along with the story. And then for the character to not just stick around, but to like kind of like find himself and find like, the holes within himself. And with the line in which he was told to stop talking about his holes was one of the biggest laughs in my career.
Mine too.
It was, I mean, and we can't hold back talking for any longer the different universes that he goes into in that one scene. I mean, the fact that we got into because we were talking about last night, are we going to see live action in this movie? And I foolishly said no. Maybe
and I said
the third one.
Yes.
And
I want that on the record.
We definitely got some live action in this movie, and it is so surreal whenever we get live action in an animated film. Like, I don't know, ever since like Happy Feet, WALL-E, the Lego movies, of course. Like, I don't know. It just kind of hits different, doesn't it? Like, it feels like dreamlike. It feels surreal, I think.
It feels like you're not allowed to do it.
Yes. Yes, that's a great way to put it, Michael. It feels like you're breaking the rules. Like, so I'm grateful for the audience in the respect that when we did go to the first live action clip, people were like, "Oh, from the Venom movie," and I was like, "Oh, okay, got it. That's where she's from." Because I would not have known because I've not seen the Venom films.
You didn't.
No.
I mean, you didn't even recognize the convenience store from the trailers. Come on.
I mean, I recognized the convenience store from the trailers, but I'm glad that just as a confirmation that it was like, oh, this character has existed before. Like, yeah, it looked like the Venom movie, but you know.
I mean, I knew, just for the record.
I'm just saying, I appreciated the fact that there were people who literally, whenever anything nerdy happened, there was specific people that had a big reaction to it.
Don't worry, I had the same exact experience in Infinity War, the end credits scene, and my friend and I were like, we don't know what that means, and this guy in the back is like, oh, that's Captain Marvel's symbol, and we were like, shout out to that guy. Now we can act like we know what we're talking about when we leave.
Right, like you really, and I mean they do it, and just the way I mean, obviously we get some other live action stuff throughout the movie, but like also like the spectacular Spider-Man part, like these were all moments that elicited very excited reactions from that side of the theater, but also from myself. But let's not get into that yet. The Lego universe.
Yes.
The Lego. I mean, Michael. We knew
because one of my friends sent me the article, that article
was everywhere.
That was titled like Jake Johnson confirms Lego universe, and I was in the middle of work. Like I was at work, when he sent me that.
Yeah.
And I literally had to hold back tears because I was so excited while I was at work because of that news.
Lego Spider-Man is one of their best. It was just such a great... I would have settled for...
That is literally
I
exactly what I was about to say. I would have been fine with just the 1 second thing.
Quick bit.
And you're like, yep, there's Lego, you see him running around, stop motion, it's fun. Like...
No, but they go back.
And they go back. And not only do they go back, but it's like a serious moment. Like that's how Miguel knows.
It was actually like crucial to the story, and it was played so seriously, and just like the sheer I think there was like giddy delight in the fact that it was happening and that like we were returning to it and that it was important, and you could just like feel that in the theater of everyone being like, no way, like they're really committing to this. And it was just so cool. Like you see like the Lego Peter Parker, which you don't really see the Lego Peter Parker, and then like, you know, you'd see him as Spider-Man and just
I need a new job.
And J. Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simmons, like really reprising a lot of J. Jonah Jameson. I'm assuming you could hear it immediately from the first time that we heard him from the screen in this movie.
Yep.
Like, because
you can tell. It's like the only voice that character has.
I just love that he is like the constant of like, if we have J. Jonah Jameson in the movie, like, it's just, it has to be him.
He is like, the canon moment.
Oh,
if he does not get the role, then Miguel will be a little bit upset.
Oh my goodness. Like, the canon. I can't believe that they called it the canon. Like, because we have all these discussions of like, oh, like, is there fate? Like, because in No Way Home, there's like, well, what if we could change their fate? And, you know, it's always more like winking at the idea of being meta-contextual of like, oh, can characters control their destiny? Can they control what happens to them? But this movie literally was like, there is a Spider-Man canon, and there are things that happen in all the different Spider-Man pieces of media. I mean, Spider-Man lives, whatever. And it just like fully committed to that idea. I don't know. That was again one of the moments in the movie where I was like, am I dreaming right now? Did they really just say and they're going all in on like, this movie is insane. I just couldn't believe. I don't know. Like, the canon. The canon. We really did that.
I don't want to brush off from something that happened earlier in the movie that was my, like, oh my god, like, this movie's gonna... I know I mentioned that when the cough appeared, and I know I also mentioned that when we got to Gwen's world, and it was really cool. Mm-hmm. But when we saw the vulture, and it was just in a completely different animation style...
Yeah.
Like, my jaw dropped.
Because you were talking about last night with Penny Parker. Say what you said about Penny Parker last night.
Well, it was like... Okay, so let's go back to 2018.
Yeah.
That movie's crazy. They put all of these different, like, art styles into the movie.
Right.
And... like, they went hard. But, like, even Penny, like, there were some sequences where she was, like, a 3D model, and you could kind of tell, and it's like, well, I mean... And that's not, like, a critique, that's just, you know... You can look at her and tell she's a 3D model.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so, like, they obviously put a lot of effort and work into it, into emulating the style. But they didn't, like, do the style, you know? Like, and I'm saying this with a lot of love in my heart, I better not get any hate in the comment section. Penny's one of my favorites. Voiced by Kimiko Glenn, Force, Central World, come on.
Yes.
But yeah, that was what my thought was. It was like, well, she's a 3D model, like, that's fine. And then in this movie, they're like, people will buy tickets. We know this. We were told that they would buy tickets by the last time when they actually did buy tickets. So we're going to go a little crazy.
Yeah.
And crazy they went.
It was a mixed media movie. Like, just, like, fully, like, in a way...
They made mixed media performance art. Joan of Arc would have been so happy watching this movie.
I feel like I haven't seen a movie that, like, so, like, completely embraced mixed media in this way. Like, maybe ever in a movie theater. Like, I don't know. It had... just so fearlessly would integrate live action into the... and animated characters talking to live action characters, despite it not being a live action animated film. not sold on it. It was just like sparingly integrated, but just also all the different animation styles glimpsed throughout them. It just mind blowing.
There were moments where I was just like sitting there wondering if this was too much for people. Because like I was expecting going in and seeing animation and all these different styles clashing with each other, and I was like,
yeah.
Is there anyone in this audience right now that like saw Spider-Man in the title and was like, okay, sure, I'll go see that.
Right.
And then they open up with the SpiderGwen world. They're like,
yeah,
that doesn't look normal. Like, it is mind-boggling to me that this is like a mainstream movie. Like, this is going to be the #1 movie of the weekend. People are loving it. Reviews are great. Like, it fills my heart with joy.
I think they realized that they just needed to take things to the next level, because otherwise I think you're not living up to the standards set by the original film. Because you can't just come back in here and do the same thing again of like, all right, well...
There's a few different spider people.
There's a few different spiders. And one of them's an animal. And they're all in Miles of the Universe. Like, you couldn't just do that again. You had to push the boundaries. Because what did the first movie do? Push the boundaries.
It's what Miles said. It's what Miles taught me. Anything is possible.
Yes. That is the message of the movie. Because I was really trying to like think about what is this movie about? Like if we have to like boil it down to something. And I think it's just that. I think it is the limitless possibility. If the first, I know they kind of said in the lead up to this, it was like, oh, if the first movie was about like anyone could wear the mask, this is more like how you wear the mask. And I feel like that is connected to this idea of like, oh, like anything is possible, because like, yeah, in terms of like how you're going to wear the mask and what you're going to do, you can go any way, you can go your own way. You can do that. And we don't know what's going to happen if you do. Hellfire will rain down upon you if you try, apparently. Because, geez, it is kind of crazy that this movie is like, all right, so we're going to introduce all these other, you know, spiders and stuff. So, basically, what these good guys are trying to do is they say, like, so your dad is going to die, and you can't do anything about it.
You're going to be really sad, but yeah. I was really sad when mine died, so it's okay.
Yeah, and, like, the thing about it is, like, it's supposed to happen. So just, like, let it happen. Just, like, all right? You're good with that, Miles? And it's like, no, I'm not good with that. You would say... And the movie, I really feel like... I don't know, because I was like, maybe I need to see it again in order to try to...
That's how I felt.
The 3-act structure... Well, yeah. But, like, I feel like this movie doesn't have a 3-act structure. I don't even know if it has a 2-act structure. I'm not sure what's happening in this movie. This movie needs to be studied in a lab, I think. Because it's like, it's breaking all the rules. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's just, we're with Miles, like, in his family life for a while, and then, like, he follows Gwen, and then it becomes this thing of, like, I don't know. It just, I feel like we didn't have, like, our usual, like, recognizable signposts of, like, oh, now entering Act 2, now entering Act 3. It was more just, like, hey, I mean, we kind of get this bombshell of what's going to happen to his father. And then in terms of just, like, also the fact that, like, he was not supposed to exist, that Miles was, like, not meant to be.
I know I mentioned the bagel guy was the biggest shock. I think this was actually my biggest shock. Because it made perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense. Because I was actually kind of thinking about this from watching the movie last night of, like, wow, as soon as one Peter Parker goes out, like, one Spider-Man goes out, another one comes in. And it's like, it's kind of, is it just like the universe, like achieving, like, balance with that? And, like, that is basically what it was. It was that Peter Parker would not have died if not for Miles being bitten by a spider that was not of his universe. And the amount of mileage that they were able to get from that, of just like, hey, that, like, leads to what the story is that we're doing with the Spot. That leads to this idea of, like, oh, Miles is not, like, meant to be, and it's, like, kind of this commentary on, like, oh, does he deserve to exist? Is this someone that is, like, is this a version of Spider-Man that is meant to be out there, which that's obviously, like, very meta-contextual and meaningful. But then also, it's this whole thing of, like, yeah, they use that as, like, an ingenious plot mechanic to be, like, he doesn't get sent back to his universe when his DNA gets analyzed, which, like, that was just a stroke of genius, I thought.
Yes.
Because that also made so much sense.
Because, like, it made so much sense.
Yeah.
But I didn't think about it until, like, you realize that he's not home.
It was crazy. Because you're watching the scene when it's like, oh, he's gonna admit he's Spider-Man. He's about to do it. And you're just so waiting for what the reaction is. And you're like, okay, we think we know how this is gonna play out. So, like, accept it, but, like, maybe she won't. I don't know. I was so all over the map with this because, like, right before that scene, they had this of, like, with Gwen and her dad, and, like, her dad, like, finally, like, kind of, like, on the road to accepting her now, and, like, they hug and all that. So I was like, did they do that because, like, this is about to really go south? Or, like, what's about to happen? And when she said, who's Spider-Man, I went, what? At first it was like, oh, is this a joke? Is it like she doesn't know? But, like, she knows who Spider-Man is. We know that she knows who Spider-Man is. Like, the funeral of Spider-Man. The death of Spider-Man was a big deal in the last movie. So, like, and then the realization dawns on you of, oh, it's not his. And that really felt Back to the Future Part 2. Of, like, this is not, it's not your family. Some, like, bizarro version of reality. Of your reality. I'm like, oh. And it's not, and in a movie in which truly anything can happen, there's, like, mixed media, like, all this stuff, like, there could be anything that pops up on screen at any moment. The reason that we feel so displaced in this other universe is not due to, like, mere style or anything. It is because of what it means to our main character. It is because this is a universe in which his father is dead. In which it is, and that really means something, and that's enough for it to be a bizarro universe. It doesn't have to be that, like, oh, it, like, everything it rains yellow here, like, you know, like, it doesn't.
Well,
it doesn't have to be something.
It rained green, and it looked really awesome.
You know what I mean?
I know.
It wasn't like it wasn't.
It wasn't like hey, red means go.
Everyone has tails in this universe or something. You know, it was not, or red means go. Yeah, the truly the most baffling idea ever for an alternate universe. No, it was just, it led from a character first perspective. And, from the beginning, I mean, that's what you get with Miles. That's what you get with, like, all this, like, when he's, like, with the guidance counselor and the family talking. That was another one of, like, the big laugh moments when it's like he's failing Spanish, but also like when the counselor is like, oh, you need then a story, and it's like you kind of like you're all like really struggling, and the family's like, I mean, we're not though, and they're like, you want him to get into school, right? And they're like, yes, okay. that big laughs and that whole sequence. That was, it was just classic, like, this is the family, like, and we, you know, they just let that play out with the little Spider-Man twist of like, oh, he can't then make it here. He's like struggling. I feel like it brought back some of that energy that we got in Spider-Man 2 of where it's like, that movie is about Spider-Man having all these personal obligations and like, gosh darn it, no matter how hard he tries, he just can't, he keeps disappointing the people in his life that he cares about. He just can't like make these commitments. You got a little bit of that in here, which I love. Just that thing of like, oh, he needs to make this meeting. Oh, he needs to make this party, and he just can't do. And it's not his fault. He can't do it. The Spider-Man is this higher calling that keeps him away, and you're just like, oh, why don't you just be able to live your life? And you get that with Gwen too, because she just wants to hang out with Miles. These two kids just want to hang out together, and they can't. They're not allowed. They're not allowed, or at least that's why we think they're not hanging out. There's a deeper reason for why Gwen isn't with Miles, but we don't know that yet. Oh, this movie.
It's so good. Like, learning, because, I mean, you think, oh, Miles is just, like, too new, he's too inexperienced. That makes enough sense, sure.
Yeah.
And then they're like, here's an actual reason, and it makes perfect sense. And I know that I said this about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but this movie somehow elevates even into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Like, everything about that movie, like, specifically the opening act where he, like, gets bit and all that stuff happens.
Yeah.
Is better now.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. Because, like, for years, that's been, like, oh yeah, this is the perfect movie. This is a perfect little movie, the best superhero movie, and now it's even better.
Right.
Wow.
And even like the little thing you said about Penny, where it's like you see her again in this movie, and like she.
I was shocked because like
a little different.
You could hear her voice like in the crowd when she's like about to walk when she walks up.
Yeah.
And I mean, like obviously I recognize her because she's Kamiko Glenn, and I've listened to her voice plenty throughout the Centaur World soundtrack.
Right.
But I was like, whoa, I didn't know we were going to see her. Because, like, yeah. I kind of expected that we would see the original trio from the first one. The trio
I thought
being,
we'd see them at, like, the end of the movie, which we did.
Yeah, but then, like, someone mentioned, they were like, I don't know, maybe they'd hold off. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'd buy that. And then I guess I just kind of sold myself into that idea. So when they showed up, I was like, oh my god, no way. How is this character, like, a giant reveal when it's just one line? Why am I this excited about it? That's the magic of movies, baby.
The magic of movies, right? Like and she she looked great. She looked fully to in the style that you would ideally hope her to be.
Yeah.
Like, and just the other thing, I mean, yeah, like in the first movie, we get a little bit of a shout out to Donald Glover because it's like you get a little bit of that scene from Community where it's like him in the Spider-Man pajamas. And, like, that's playing on Uncle Aaron's TV. But in this movie, they're just like, let's just put Donald Glover in the movie.
And he'll say stuff. In live action.
And that was, I had a visceral reaction to that. Because I was not expecting that at all.
Me neither.
When that happened, I went, oh! That, like, what a joyous moment. Because this is for anyone who doesn't know, there would be no Miles Morales without Donald Glover. It wouldn't have happened. That's why the character was created. From this whole idea of Donald Glover playing Spider-Man. So it just felt so right. Like, I know he was in Homecoming. I know he was in it. But, like, to see him here just felt so special. Ugh.
It feels like everyone, even, like, all the guests and stuff, knew how special this movie was. And how big of a deal it is. And it isn't just, this is just one of the 5 trillion animated Marvel movies that just kind of pops up.
No, it's not. As evidenced by the way the movie, I mean, even though it brings in stuff from so many different projects that involve Spider-Man over the years, like, it's on its own playing field. Like, you are fully just immersed in this freaking movie. Like, it doesn't, and you were like, all right, this is over. When is the third one? Like, when are we getting it? It's not about how does this connect to some larger thing. You're just watching Miles and his family, and you care about them, and, like, I was excited because I knew from the trailer that we were going to get more from his mom, which I, like, really appreciated, but I actually didn't think we'd get as much of his dad as we did in the movie, and I thought those scenes were really great. Like, I loved the stuff of, him, like, talking to his dad, and, like, them retaining the development between not just, Miles and his dad, but also just, like, Miles and Spider-Man and his dad, I guess. That was so funny, I thought. And, like, the spread your wings advice that then, like, he later, like, says, like, oh, that was so great.
Yeah. He listened to Spider-Man. It isn't just like, that's some guy that I hate. It's a mask.
He did. Oh, isn't that...
Like, he respects him.
There's that book that Peter B. Parker is reading where it's like how to talk to your kids so they listen and how to, like, listen. Like, what does it say? Did you catch the title of this? It's
something like that. It's like how to talk to your kids so that they talk to you, or something like that.
Yeah, so they listen, and I was just
how to talk to your kids so they listen, and listen so they talk to you, something like that.
So they talk to you. Yeah, something. Yeah, that sounds right. And it just there's definitely a sense of that throughout this movie of, like, talking and listening to each other. And being honest about what you're going through. Like, Miles as Spider-Man kind of has that moment with his dad when it's like, you want to talk about it? Because men, don't typically get it, like, discuss their mental health. That was another big laugh line. I mean, and that's, and better things happen when we do talk about this
The
stuff.
second Lord and Miller thing that released today that talked about mental health.
That's true. The Clone High secret message, if you call the phone number and get to the website.
Or look at the
mental health resources.
Or look at the credits.
But
that's less exciting.
But this, it just, yeah, I guess that's also core to this movie. The idea of, like, not repressing yourself. The idea of that you should be honest about how you feel. Because, yeah, there's that fear of not being accepted. And that is instilled at the very beginning of the film with Gwen not being accepted by her dad. And I mean, I don't know. I think I think there was a heavy feeling of, and I know there's a lot of superheroes with secret identities and whatnot, and like, oh, are they going to reveal it or whatever? I feel like in this movie there was a very big coming out allegory. Were you feeling that?
I 100% was feeling it. I'm glad you brought it up.
Like, I think it was, like, really...
I feel like it had to be intentional.
Like, that's what it is, right? Like, I feel like that's the intent.
I 100% feel like that's the intent. Like, Gwen had the trans flag in her room. Her dad had a trans flag pin on his jacket. And then at the sequence at the end where she's talking about, you can only know, like, half of me, whatever. The entire world is the trans flag color, like, melting around her. Like, I feel like you have to be just ignoring it at that point to say that you don't think it's that.
It's also just even the dialogue that you get of Miles when he's talking to his mom, or who he thinks is his mom, of like, I don't want this to change things, basically, is what he's saying. Like, I don't want you to love me any less. I don't want you to see me differently. Because, like, often they'll say, like, usually with Spider-Man, they'll be like, okay, well, the reason I'm keeping my identity a secret is because I'm trying to protect my family. Is to protect them. But here, Miles very plainly states, it's because I don't want you to see me differently. Which, I mean, I don't know how much more, like... close, like, on the money you can get, if that's then what you're going for. Like, it hit. I don't think it takes a film student to figure that out. Like, I think it'll really resonate with a lot of people.
100%. Like, even just seeing the audience that came out for this movie, like, yeah. But, like, in my screenings specifically, I was like, wow.
Yeah. It just... this movie's insane. Like, I want to know what the public reaction is going to be, because you kind of mentioned this earlier, this thought of, is it too much for people? and I did have a little bit of that concern of, like, is this movie going to be like, you walk into it as just a regular audience member who's like, one ticket for the new Spider-Man movie. Are you just going to be like, what is this thing? And why does it end with it to be continued? Like, I don't know. I'm just worried about, like, if there are people who are, like fresh out of it, like, exiting the theater that are like, I don't know, I'm mad it didn't have an ending. And then I don't want the cinema score to be anything less than what it deserves, Michael. That's what I'm saying. I don't want those exit polls to be compromised.
Those exit polls better be S pluses.
Because it's not because this movie isn't smart. It's because I'm worried people are too stupid. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried. Because, like, it's like, oh, a movie's not supposed to have it to be continued. Why not? Why? We have never been... I was talking before about how this is, like, changing the game for a Western animated movie just being as long as it is. But, like, a Western animated film that has a to-be-continued ending that, like, has, like, a genuine cliffhanger of, like, yeah, we're making another one. We know we're making another one. We're going to set it up right now. There is no even like pretense. We're not going to even joke that there's a resolution right now. It's just we're leading into the next one. We've just never gotten anywhere close to that before, and it's crazy. Like, I can't believe it. I can't believe they were able to do this. I can only assume it's just because of the sheer, like, overwhelming success of the first one, that they were like, all right, listen, you want us to make more? This is our terms for making more. And they were like, okay, we're not gonna doubt you guys. Go ahead, make the movie. But like,
I cannot imagine a harder job on this earth than it would be to storyboard this movie.
oh wow, yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, try doing one of the spot fight sequences where it's like
it baffles me that this exists solely because I can't imagine this amount of people being able to be on the same page and understand what everyone else is trying to convey.
Right. Well, again, it speaks to the power of animation, because something I was thinking about, there's that great scene when Miles and Gwen have that, like, upside down conversation.
Yes.
And what I kept thinking through that scene was like, wow, the first time that we ever had Spider-Man on the big screen was when we did the famous, like, upside down kiss, right? Where it's like, wow, look at that. Look what we could do with a Spider-Man movie. I just felt like, and you could try to do an upside down scene like this in live action where it's like just a full, like, grounded dialogue scene playing out like this, but it would just, this to me, I feel like, demonstrated the power of animation in a very subtle and understated way of, like, they could sell this emotional moment as being, like, kind of this, like, breathtaking, jaw-dropping, like, approach to the sequence of, like, yeah, it is upside down overlooking this view and it's incredible, like, and you can sell it and it'll work, but it's through animation. It's because it's animated. So often it's like, oh, well, it has to be animated if it's, like, a really crazy, expressive cartoon character, or because, like, there's just so many, like, things, like, overcomplicated, like, this was more just like, hey, it needs to be animated in order to sell the emotional validity of the scene. And I don't know, something about that just, like, hit me right where I live, you know?
Yeah. I agree.
There's so much, what are other things that we want to touch on? And because there's just, we could talk about it.
Pretty much any moment of, like, the last half hour, I was ready for it to just cut to black.
I was so scared about it cutting to black.
The one that I was the most scared about was when Uncle Aaron punches the punching bag, and you see, like, the splatter come from it, and it just, like, pauses on that. Legitimately, for way longer than I should have. I just thought, oh my god, he just splatted open Miles' head, and it's gonna cut to black, and he died.
My goodness.
How insane that I legitimately 100% believed that he died at the end of this movie, and that would be the ending. I just was fully bought into that.
Yeah, I was like, is the reveal of Uncle Aaron going to be the cliffhanger ending? I was like, it's like Gwen talking to Miles' parents. Is that going to be the end? Like, yeah, I was like on pins and needles, like, oh man, when is it going to cut? Because I had that sense of, like, the audience is not ready for this. Like, I don't know how much they're going to, kind of prepare them. Like, are they gonna make it clear that the movie's about to end? And, like, they did as much as they could, but still, I don't think, I'm assuming that people are going into this not knowing, like, oh, is there a part 2, a part 3? Because people don't know. We've talked about this all the time, Michael. Like, people don't know what's going on with movies for some reason.
They don't. And especially not with an animated movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious how many of these people were like, yeah, I'm just going with my friend, or, yeah, my child wants to see the new Spider-Man movie. I'll go with them.
Yeah. I just love the fact, too, that it's like, it has the cliffhanger ending, and it does classic Marvel style, like Miles Morales will return.
That is it. That was insane. Like,
that was insane.
I was not expecting that at all.
But, like, the fact that, and they do that, and that's it. Like, there's no post-credits, like, they don't compromise the cliffhanger in any way. I was expecting, at the very least, they would, like, Back to the Future Part 2 ending style, be like, here's basically a trailer for Part 3. But they didn't even do that. They were just like, you will have to wait.
They said, we don't have to sell you.
Yeah.
It is funny that you say that, because at the very end of my screening, it gave us, like, the PG, like, before a trailer, like, screen.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god. Oh, they're not doing this, are they?
No.
And then it just cuts to black after that.
That always happens. It just pops up on there. That would have been crazy. Yeah, like later on in the Endgame screenings when they just showed a Far From Home trailer, it would have been like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh jeez. Yeah, I don't know.
If you have not seen Into the Spider-Verse, or the Spectacular Spider-Man, or played the Spider-Man video game, or done any of this other stuff, do not watch the rest of this movie.
I mean, we haven't even really talked about, like Jessica Drew, spider-gwen.
Yeah, we haven't talked about any of the other characters.
Like, there's just so much in it. Like, I mean, because she was great. I mean, I love when Gwen is like, can you adopt me? Or whatever. Like, It was just so... It was such a great... Again,
it just felt like it understood how to write kids.
Yes, the first 10 minutes of this movie are very, like, I feel like it's a short film unto itself. Of, like, because you have, like, Gwen's little arc of, like, oh, what's gonna happen with her and her dad, and, like, they really build that up, but also, like, it's this thing of, yeah, is she gonna get let into this group? And you really, like, kind of get this vibe of, like, oh, it really only happens if it's, like, a last resort of, like, she has nowhere else to go, like, then fine, we'll, like, pity her and let her do it, but, like, it's so purposeful, because it does really endear you to this, the Spider-Woman character, and also, you know, to 2099, and... Given the places that the movie goes later, I feel like just the whole movie benefits so much from starting the way that it does. That it gives this level of agency to Gwen and the two of them. Like you really just get their frame of mind more, where otherwise I feel like they would have just been a little bit, like, superficial as characters. Of like, oh yeah, they're like other spider people, but, you know, we're not allied with them. So they're just kind of bad. We gotta get away. Like, no. Oh, man. It's just crazy. And, like, all the new... Yeah, I mean, they just did not hold back with the amount of characters that then they pulled into this. I thought they were all really fun.
Peter parked car.
That was insane. I can't believe that they did that.
There was someone in my theater that, like... You know how people read the thing, and then they react. So there's, like, a second of, like, dissonance. That popped up. There was a pause, and someone goes, Peter parked car!
I love whenever they did the text on screen. I know I alluded to it earlier, but, like, one of the first times when I had, like, oh, I'm, like, in love with this movie was very early on when they used the word hammer space, and then they defined it on the screen. I was like... This is... Because that is what comics do. Sometimes they'll have, like, that, like... They'll just... I couldn't believe that there was a definition on screen of the movie of this mainstream family film. Just out here putting a quirky definition on the screen. Oh my goodness.
And I don't even think they ever say hammer space again.
Yeah, they just do it just for your edification. Because that's what they sometimes do with these definitions. It's like, hey, maybe you haven't heard this before. This is just so you know something that you didn't know before. And it's user-friendly. It doesn't, like, dwell on it. It's not like the characters stop talking or whatever. It's more just like, yeah, it's there. If you want to look at it, you can. If not, if you don't need it, then just keep going. Oh, my goodness.
I love this movie.
Yeah. No, if it's not clear, we love
it. If it isn't clear... Pretty good. Pretty good movie.
Pretty good.
Like.
The Insomniac Games Spider-Man?
Yeah, I called it. I did call it. I said screenshot this on a tweet of mine that said he'd be in it. I was right.
Yeah. What were you going to say before?
I was going to say, on the like, train sequence, when Miles, like, jumps off of the train, like, even now, even after a year and 4 months of being Spider-Man, and obviously getting into the swing of things, pun intended.
Right.
Like, when he jumped off the train, you could still see, like, the crack of glass that was, like, stuck to his foot. Like...
Oh, wow.
like it was so much smaller than, like, obviously the giant crack was that connected to his hand in the What's Up Danger sequence in the first movie. But, like, still, like, all of these stakes were going on, and he was scared, but he still did it anyway. Like, obviously he would be scared about, destroying every single universe ever, but he's like, I love my family, so I'll do that anyway.
And also just the fact that, like, Peter B. Parker, I mean, we kind of knew based on, like, the dialogue that we get throughout the first movie that it's like he goes on this journey from not wanting to ever have kids, thinking, oh, maybe he does want them. But for him to actually, like, just come out and say, again, it's this idea of honesty and just, like, fully communicating something that,
I was shocked.
Men should do. You are why I had this child. That's why I want you to hold her. Because it's because I think you're a good person. I hope that she is like you. I was like, wow. I mean, what a meaningful moment to get it. Like, I love how, because Peter B. Parker, he's not in this movie very much, but the impact that he makes, and it's very much...
I had just the right amount of you.
I guess that's a fitting line. We get just the right amount of him. Because he's there to service Miles' story. This is not, this Spider-Verse is not being like, alright, well, we need a big role for Peter Parker again to satisfy the legacy event. Like, no. He's just here again because he's an important character and we, like, care about seeing him. But, like, we're not selling the movie on his back. Like, he'll pop in, pop out.
You'll see his daughter.
Mayday Parker. Yeah, you see a little bit of Mary Jane, which, like, is really nice. But, oh, my goodness. The fact that's why. And he said it. He admitted it. What a nice moment.
I got chills when Miles disrupted the canon event, like, towards the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, before we even really knew what that meant.
Yeah.
Like, when they were all just kind of sitting there, and they were all like, oh my god, like, I'm alive. Like, I could, you're alive too. And they just, like, reconnecting, and then you just see all the spider people, like, standing there, like, yep. And then Miles like, yep, that's what you do, Spider-Man. And the rest of them were like, oh my goodness.
Oh. Yeah, and that being why Gwen didn't want him to go for it. It's like, is it because you were protecting me? I was like, well, it was that too. Oh. It's rough, Michael. Like, this whole movie. What's wrong? What's wrong with this group of spiders? Why are they like, sometimes you just gotta let people die. This needs to be investigated more. I know then disrupting the canon potentially has disastrous consequences, but really, like, take a look in the mirror and realize what you're telling yourself. I guess, okay, and this is how we could transition a little bit into predictions for the next one. I feel like the resolution we will come to is this idea of the whole notion of the canon is basically a coping mechanism of, like, I felt like assigning a higher level of importance to the death of a loved one. It gave it meaning, and it made me be like, well, I guess it had to happen. And, like, it kind of removed that sense of guilt from me. The feeling of personal responsibility being such a big part of Spider-Man. It was like, well, if I make it that it's outside of my control and something that was meant to happen and always was going to happen, always will happen, then I am not going to hold myself against this. And yeah, for them to realize that that's silly and they shouldn't do that. I don't know. I think that's something that needs to be unpacked.
Yeah, I completely see that's where it's going.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question is, what else do we think is going to happen? Like, because I know we're in the right. Is he gonna save his dad? I hope he's able to save his dad.
I believe yes. I would be shocked if he doesn't.
I would think he'll be able to save his dad, but, like,
yeah, I just feel like if his dad dies, then, like, he would just...
Then what was the point? Yeah.
Then what's the point? But, like, he'd just be upset at Miguel, and he'd be like, oh, shut up, kid. You don't understand anything. How was supposed to happen? But if he saves him, then that's when everything goes haywire. And they have to try and figure out, okay, this might cause some problems down the line, but ultimately saving this person's life was more important.
I'm just curious how that movie will be structured.
I have no idea.
I keep thinking in my head of, like, if it's like Return of the Jedi, and it's like, we're saving Han in Act 1, is it like, yeah, we save him, like, because I feel like we have all the pieces in play, like, it's about to happen. Like, we'll wake up in the morning and it's going to happen. Like, are we going to get through that in the first act, and then everything starts, like, crumbling apart, and then that's when we start to go beyond the Spider-Verse? Like, how deep into the film is him saving his dad going to occur? What... I'm just... I don't know. I don't know what's the roadmap here. I think I just need to... Oh... Because it could, I mean, I could see it also that they, you know, that like, we build to that climax, because it may take a long time in order for everyone to reconnect still. Like, it depends. And how does the Spot fit into this? You know, like, where's he at? Where's his, like, horror movie self at? Because he, my goodness, feels like a horror movie villain at this point.
Yes.
Which is
like,
crazy.
When he's like, I lost my face. I was like, I know that we're just, like, kind of joking here, and this character design is, like, very... like easy going on the eyes and not like scary, but that's like terrifying. This was just a normal guy.
Yeah, this was a normal guy, and now his skin looks like this. I know we made it a joke at first, but then when we see what he looks like, you know, like by the end of the film, you're just like, oh no. He's so creepy. It really feels like this is, I mean, it's a villain unlike any we've seen before. A villain who has a strong resolve to not be merely a villain of the week. And boy, is he not. He's villain of the 2 years. We'll have
and I think it's interesting that he is so fixated on Miles Morales Spider-Man specifically. Like, he's not just like, I want to be the biggest villain ever in any universe. Yeah. But he's like, I want to fight
that's the villain that wronged him. That's his nemesis. He's the reason that everything happened to him. Yeah, I love the gag when it's like, Spider-Man is like, me? Who are you talking to?
Yeah, I also am wondering if Miles not being Spider-Man is what they're going for with, hey, Gwen falls in love with Spider-Man in every universe, and every time it ends poorly. If maybe that, like, Miles being different and special is why this time it will work out.
Well, he was not supposed to be Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, if he wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man, then perhaps it'll be able to work out because the path is derailed enough.
I mean, there's no way that they're not getting together. I refuse to accept any other way. I don't care what the canon says. I'm gonna go to Archive of Our Own to write my own canon. Like, come on. They deserve to be together.
One thing that I learned watching this movie, I think It's a Banksy is a canon event.
What a great callback. Probably the first big laugh of the movie too. I think It's a Banksy. I also generating big laughs was whenever they upped the amount of months that Miles was grounded.
Yeah. One of the biggest laughs my theater got was when she was like, "Yeah, when you come back, you're grounded."
Yeah.
I'm smiling like it's a joke, but I'm being serious.
It was especially that last one that they tell Gwen, because I think you just aren't expecting it. Just so much has happened.
Yeah, and it just so much has happened, and like Miles is disappeared. Like you think that they just be ecstatic just to have it back.
Right. It takes it back down to its, you know, these family dynamics, and that's what makes it just so like lovable, and how anyone can connect to it.
Also, go on.
No,
I was just going to mention like an Easter egg, so go ahead, please.
No, you go ahead.
The moose from Mitchell vs. the Machines was in Miles' room.
Yes,
I know we saw that in the initial teaser trailer, and also
still there.
It is still there, and also the spider therapist is voiced by Michael Rianda.
Yeah,
Yippee!
yeah, I heard about that.
And
Good
also,
for
did you
him.
see the Everything Everywhere All at Once billboard?
No, where's that?
It's close to the beginning. It's when Miles and Gwen are like kind of exploring the city. It's like a one thing, two things all over the place poster, and it has like a ring on it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's very
This
fun.
movie, I mean, I think there's maybe a few details could have missed. Clearly,
Just,
missing things right off the bat.
I mean,
get the cough.
if you blinked, you've missed something.
That's
And when I say that,
was
I mean that genuinely.
That's why I was like, I'm just sitting right up close to the IMAX screen. Maybe that's why. Like,
I
the
need
movie
to
was just
watch
fully
it
enveloping.
Clockwork Orange style.
It was fully enveloping my vision, so maybe that's why. Like, I missed certain things because I was just like.
Well,
like,
don't
my
worry.
eyes,
If
like,
you
are
missed anything,
scanning
you
the
can just
frame.
catch it on your second viewing, as James Cameron said.
Right, James Cameron. So yeah, you'll be back. You'll be back. Classic James Cameron. Oh, jeez. Okay. Any other
I
thoughts?
feel like I'm
Anything
missing a
that we
bunch of
wanna-
stuff.
There's so much to say. I mean, the movie, it just blew our minds wide open. I really do feel like it's once again changed the game. It's broken all the rules. Like, story structure, I don't even know. I think it is just this thing of like, yeah, it's a movie about, I don't even know. It just like you kind of.
It's a movie about love.
It's a movie about love.
Like,
It's
Miles
like,
broke all the rules
because he
loved his family. And then even like Gwen and Peter B. Parker and the original squad and the few of them that are in Spider Society did it because either they love Miles, a la like the original cast, or because they love Gwen, a la the newer cast, or because they just, I don't know, have someone that they love that they don't want to let die.
You know what? I thought of how I would put like a wrapper around this, which is like the movie begins in that kind of classic Spider-Man fashion, or like the Spider-Man 2 style thing of what I was saying of it's Miles being weighed down by all of his different duties as Spider-Man to the point that like it's, hurting his relationship with his family. So it's like the Spider-Man stuff is getting in the way of his family life. But by the end of the movie, it's like every Spider-Man in every universe is out to get me, but I am going against that so I can be there for my family. And it just like inverses in a way that's like really clear. That's why I feel like it's like a 2-act structure almost. It's like it's this flip that happens, and then the movie, it's just like a chase to get out of there. I don't know. I don't know if that made any sense. But that's my
It did
initial
make
impression.
sense.
Okay. Oh.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm missing so much. Like, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow after having, like, ruminated and dreamt on this movie and could be like, I only said half of what I wanted to say. I mean,
yeah.
if even, like, a single movie takes one of these art styles and makes, like, a movie out of it, it doesn't have to, like, style hop. Then this movie is objectively, like, good and push the medium forward. Like, if we see any movie with, like, the weird painting backgrounds, I don't know. I just love the visuals of this movie so much.
They're incredible.
Let's give a painting or a frame. Every frame a painting. Like, I need posters of every frame.
Oh yes. Well, I got a poster of. I guess it's technically for the first movie, but through the Mondo poster before Funko shut all that stuff down. But it's coming. It hasn't gotten here yet.
Oh, nice.
But, let's do our box office predictions, because I have them up from in the end of April. It's when we wrote these.
I actually forgot what mine was.
I have it for you. I'll say yours if you'd like. Yours was $580,538,936. You did it to the dollar.
I love doing it to the dollar because it makes it more exciting when it gets nearby. I will up that by like 100,000.
100,000. Okay.
I'll go like
so
6.
580,638,936. Well, yeah, you said that in response to mine, because I guess you thought I had too high expectations. I was at, yeah.
I don't know.
$650 million is what I said. So just for the sake of it, I'll improv it live on the air. 650,326,922. That's the dollar amount.
Wow.
That it needs to clear. You heard it here first, folks. Watch that be exactly the amount of money.
See, that's why it's fun to say the exact dollar amount.
Yeah, you're right.
If you just say it by, like, million, it's like, cool. I will say, I did get Force Awakens $3 million off. In terms of opening weekend specifically.
Okay.
And I was so upset because I was like, I was gonna say 200, but let's bump it to 250, and it got like 247. And I've never been able to forget because I was so close.
Oh, Michael, I mean, you can't be upset with yourself for that. That's pretty close. Pretty dang
close enough.
Well, we can only wish Miles the best of luck as he has to face an evil version of himself in order to get back home and save his father.
So we were talking about, like, whether or not he saves his father. How is the Spot going to resolve? Because I can't imagine he's going to kill him.
That's what I was going to say. That's what we were talking about before, of, like, how does the Spot factor into this? Like, where is he, like, a part of that? Like, I mean, I guess obviously he is, because that's what he's trying to do, but yeah, I don't think he's going to kill him. I also don't know how you do kill him. I think it's going to be this crazy thing of, like, yeah, like, they attack and then maybe I don't know.
He becomes, like,
the universe is falling apart and they need to, like, retreat through the holes.
That maybe he becomes, like, the gatekeeper. They're like, here's, like, a forever open portal area, and you get to be, like, in charge of it. I don't know. I feel like that still sounds too much of a punishment to me. Like, it's like, yeah, you don't actually get to live your life. You just get to help everybody else kind of do their long distance thing. So, Into the Spider-Verse.
This guy's also, what we have to remember is he's not in the canon, because what happened to him was not supposed to happen.
You're right.
So they are going to want him erased and overwritten, I would assume. Cleansed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe they kind of find common ground on that. Because it's like, you should be allowed to exist. To stop.
Yeah, that's gonna happen. That's what it is.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's it. You figured it out.
We got it. We did it. Right on the dot. Right on the spot.
Right on the spot.
On the spot. We figured it out.
In Into the Spider-Verse, Act 1, we kill Peter Parker. Yeah. Across the Spider-Verse, Act 1, Peter dies. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, no, I did.
Just putting that out there as a double thing in front of the third movie.
Yeah, and then in Act 1 of Beyond, we're going to see Peter B. Parker die.
No, he won't. They're not going to do that to his daughter.
Yeah, he'll go. Bye, Daddy will be right back. We'll be right back.
I'll be right back, and I'm so confident I'll be back, I'm not even going to stop and say I love you. Not even going to stay and watch the magic.
No. Yeah.
One thing that I really like about this movie specifically is that despite the giant scale of not only the first movie, but the second one more so, like, I know we talked about this even before the movie came out. It was like, yeah, it still feels personal. Like, it still feels like it's somehow more personal to Miles. But it really does feel like, in its own, in an MCU era, this one feels so like its own thing, even though it had like a giant section in the middle where like, here's that, here's this, here's Andrew Garfield. Right. It's Andrew Garfield on screen.
Here's Tobey Maguire on screen.
Yeah. it feels like it just feels like its own slice of like its own personal story that it's telling when Uncle Aaron comes in at the end.
Yes.
Like that really connected it to itself to me.
Yes.
Where I was like, and then when Miles ended up being the Prowler, it's like that could have been literally anyone. That could have been like it's
Tobey Maguire.
It could have been Tobey Maguire. It could have been Andrew Garfield. It could have been I don't know. It could have been Genki. But like,
sure. Like, I don't want to be the guy in the chair. I want to be the guy in the other dimension.
I do love Genki. Every he was only in it for like 10 seconds, but each second was a gem.
You know who voiced him?
I don't.
Peter Sohn, the director of Elemental.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's him.
No, that's how he ruminates.
Yeah,
it's part playing Spider-Man PS5 is part of his process. Yeah. I love that they were like that game just exists in universe as like merge of the superhero. Just the real person. Yeah. That's so funny to me. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels so connected to itself and not like we're gonna keep on going forever, you know?
Yes. A story is here, it's being told, we're doing a trilogy. And
that being said, if they ever want to make another movie, I'm not gonna stop them at 3.
Yeah, I mean, we could just, I don't know. Isn't it, I mean, they made the short film about Miles having like a panic attack, right? Isn't that happening? When are we getting that? When is that coming?
I don't actually know. I looked this up yesterday. It's playing at like an animation film festival. I don't know when it's going to be released for not people at the animation festival.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we're getting that. We're getting the Spider Noir Amazon show, allegedly.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows if that's still happening, especially with the current strike.
Oh, yes. Well, at the very least, we have this. And after this long wait, this is just the first part of not the first part. It's the second part of a 3-course meal.
Yeah.
And we won't have to wait that much longer for the third.
Oh, no. Like, this wait between 2 and 3 is going to blink and you miss it.
This is a special time where we kind of get to just sit on this one for a little bit. Think about it, appreciate it on its own terms, and wonder what will happen next. You wanted that time frame between Infinity War and Endgame again, where you're just so excited and being like, what are they going to do? What's going to happen? Like, how wonderful will it be to be able to go into a sequel again? Like, oh man, how are they going to resolve the cliffhanger? I can't wait. I
can't wait to see how the movie starts.
I know.
Because, like, Spot is doing his, like, exploding thing. This Gwen and the Spider Society, like, just are about to dimension hop. Miles is... Not only is he stuck in another universe, but he's literally tied up. Like, he's kidnapped.
I think you have to start it with Miles. Unless they want to do another thing where they... Yes.
I just feel like you... Like, I feel like you have to start with a flashback. I feel like just jumping into it would be too crazy.
Maybe what they do is they show how this Miles has become the Prowler.
No, yeah,
that's the beginning.
I mean, like, this trilogy is Miles' story, but we started with Peter Parker in the first one and Gwen with the second one. Starting with Miles at the end would be like this is it. This is the final one.
Right. Oh wow, you're right. Yeah. That'll make it the end.
Also, one of the biggest audience reactions in my theater was when Miles Morales as Spider-Man said, "Maybe if you get off the kid's ass."
Big laugh. This movie had a filthy mouth.
Yeah, my friends and I, we were looking at each other like, that's not allowed. How do they get that past the censors?
I love.
That's why Incredibles 2 lost the Oscar, and they're just doing it. They're just doing it to flex.
Yeah, said all these bad words. I love when animated movies say bad words.
It makes me. It reminds me that I'm not actually watching a real animated movie.
Oh gosh, It's, but like not those. I'm not talking about like Sausage Party or whatever, where they're just like, haha, isn't it funny? Like when it happens in this, it always just hits different.
It like punched me square in the face, where I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. When Gwen's like, what the hell is going on? You're like, yeah, what the hell is going on? Like, it's really earned. You're like, it's like every time when they say crap in one of these movies, it's like an F-bomb.
Yeah, like, I mean, Peter B. Parker saying, she took a crap was also a huge audience moment. And
yeah. That was great. This movie, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, I could say it now. June 1st into the 2nd of 2023. Best movie trilogy.
Best movie trilogy. Let's go. Or if they want to do more than a trilogy, then well, of course that's.
Well, right now it's the best movie trilogy. I guess best movie duology.
Panic Attack short. Yeah.
Yeah. Best trilogy plus, as James Gunn would say.
Right. Exactly. Don't be missing our holiday special. They have a holiday album. There you go.
They do have a holiday album. He's got a good voice.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, speaking of voice, the entire voice cast knocks it out of the park.
Oh my goodness. Such authentic performances. So, like, genuinely dramatic, like, I don't even know. But, like, the comedic timing as well. I gotta actually, I'll give, I mean, like, everyone deserves their props, but, like, Brian Tyree Henry, when he does the, like, just, I feel like he had, like, a softer touch in this one of, like, particularly when, like, Miles is talking about, like, all the stuff that he wants to study in college, and he's like, I don't know what any of that is. Like, it's just, he's just a different, you never heard him in that tone before, and that was another one of the big laughs in the movie. Just, I loved that.
You put so in a minute in one word. Kids, huh?
Shamik Moore is fantastic as always. Just such a, like, like, strong, like, really, like, feels like just, like, a real kid. And Haley Steinfeld, I mean, like, there was a lot you get in the little bit of time that it's more than a little bit, but, like, in the time that she has in the first movie, you get, like, there's a sense of gravitas to her. But I feel like they really pushed that this time of, like, this is someone who is, like, actively, like, struggling. And, like, they are repressing so many emotions. And, like, even when they're, like, just, like, trying to show, like, a little bit of affection or connection to someone, you could feel, like, yeah, I mean, what's the line of, like, her not having another friend, like, that comes across in the vocal performance of just, like, this very restrained and cautious and, like, I don't want to mess something up right now. Oh, the movie's just stacked.
I mean, stacked! The sequence where she's, like, about to go leave Miles's dimension, and, like, you see them, like, look at each other. She doesn't realize they're looking at each other.
But she doesn't know she's looking at him, yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, the spots in the back, like, highlight over their heads. And when she just goes, like, goodbye, Miles. It's like, oh my god.
Because that's really it. It's like, that could very well have been the last time she ever would have seen him. When people go to another dimension, like, it really feels like, as much as we do seem to be able to have the capacity to do it, feels like such a big deal to go to another dimension. You're like, will I ever get to go back? Like, you feel the state of, like, when Miles has that, like, when he's, like, talking to his mom, you kind of get the sense of, like, alright, yeah, and then he's gonna come back with the cake or whatever. Like, you're like, he's not coming back, is he? Until, like, maybe the end of the movie, maybe. But it's just, like, he's going on a journey. Like, and he never really, he never went across the Spider-Verse. He never, I mean, like, all the adventures that he had previously, it was different universes coming to him. The moment in which he finally, like, crosses the threshold, as we say, in storytelling, and enters into another universe, wow, it's a big moment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Andy Samberg was in it, yeah.
Andy Samberg! Okay. I think we can call it
Oscar
there,
Isaac did a good job. I don't know, like, I just don't want to stop talking about this movie, but I have nothing else left to say right now.
Oscar Isaac was wonderful. He was really a tortured soul. He was a bitter, the one Spider-Man who's not funny. That was also a really good touch. Because I thought they kind of made the point of, like, Gwen, yeah, like, all, like, her little quips at the beginning. I was like, oh, she really is, yeah, she's Spider-Woman. Look at her go. But Spider-Man 2099 is not in it for jokes. This is serious business.
His whole thing being slow. Like, yeah, it's slow. That's his thing.
It's his thing.
Don't mention it.
Oh, well, I mean, when he was chasing him at the end, it was anything but slow, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Another thing that, like, struck me was when Miles, like, you could see him kind of, like, start to electrify the chain, and we just don't follow up on that yet.
Yes, that was so cool. You're right, because that's like, oh, we'll give you this little piece. It's like, maybe this is how it's going to go down, but... And you kind of knew from the way they were doing it. It was like, oh, we're not going to actually get to see it happen, but, like, just give you still...
It just feels like it's like, you know he's, like, not going to die strapped to that. And then, like, the first 5 minutes of the next movie. Like, you know he's going to get out. So instead of trying to figure out how he's going to get out...
It gives you something to latch on to, yeah. I also just have to say, we keep coming up with things, but the Spider-Man, like the Avatar Spider-Man,
yes,
the fact that then she, like, it's not even like she, like, cancels the thing of him being able to go to another dimension. She just the fact that she hesitates, and, like, they have, like, this kind of, like, moment of human connection. So that was also a very powerful choice.
Yes.
Right, of, like, oh, I know this is what I'm supposed to do to, like, stop you, but I just can't I can't look at him and do it.
Yeah.
Ugh. What a film. What an experience.
What an experience. We went across my emotions.
And next time, perhaps the final time, we will see whatever lurks beyond the Spider-Verse. What other mediums can there possibly be? I think, yeah, they're going to... the next thing is they're going to announce that there will be a new medium in the movie. They found one.
We actually invented 5D for this movie.
Well, how does it work? We'll let that be a surprise.
You want to go in as knowing as little as possible.
Because when you leave, you'll know everything. Because that's how 5D works.
Oh my god, wait. In Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse 2023, the train left the station. Really makes you think.
Oh. You're right. The train has arrived. Now it's gone. And the train is going beyond the train track.
It's going to the moon.
I guess. To the moon.
That's what they said, right? They were like, going to the moon. Starting.
Oh. Gosh. Okay. Well, keep it here for the Beyond the Spider-Verse analysis whenever that movie comes up.
Thanks for listening.
I'm not even gonna say when it's supposed to come out. I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, remember, anything's possible. And that's not just about that's not about the release date, that's about you, the audience member.
Yes, that is about you, the audience member. Make a difference. Okay. Thanks for listening. Thwip, thwip.
Thwip. Oh, the T-Rex one being T-Whip. That was funny.
T-Whip. Oh, wow. Well.
Every joke that they could have made with, like, each of the, like, one-offs was so funny.
Yeah.
Like, you think that it's like, okay, like, that's the joke, whatever. And then they're way more clever than you could ever imagine. And you're like, oh my goodness. Like Peter Parked Car. Just the fact that he's a car is funny, but they're like, Peter Parked Car is his name. And you're like, oh my god.
The best. And
okay.
Well, stay tuned for next time when we do this one last time.
You should check out the movie in case you haven't been sold.
Yeah, watch the movie.
In theaters. Preferably in IMAX if you're watching this in the first 7 days of release.